They said, "The evil that men do lives with them, but what about the evil that women do?" In this story, a kind mechanic helped a woman with a broken car without knowing who she was, but what happened later will leave you broken. Before I continue, let me know where you are watching from, and do not forget to hit the like and subscribe button. The evening sky over Lagos was fading into a dark haze, the last streaks of sunlight swallowed by the approaching night. Traffic roared along the third mainline bridge, the city's lifeline, with impatient horns and the rumble of engines filling the air. David sat behind the wheel of his old, faded Toyota Corolla, weaving through the lanes like a man used to the chaos. He was tired. The day at the workshop had been long. 3 engine repairs, 2 flat tires, and a generator that nearly crushed his fingers. All he wanted was to get home, eat a quick meal, and collapse into bed. But life has a way of changing plans in the blink of an eye. Up ahead, he spotted a sleek black Mercedes parked awkwardly on the shoulder, its hazard lights blinking. A lone figure stood beside it, waving frantically at passing cars. Most drivers didn't even slow down. Lagos at night wasn't a place for strangers to trust each other easily. David's gaze lingered. The woman was tall, dressed in a flowing cream dress that shimmered under the streetlights. Even from a distance, he could see she wasn't just beautiful, she was breathtaking. But it was the worry in her eyes, not her looks, that made him pull over. Rolling down his window, he called out, "Good evening, madam. Problem with the car?" Her face lit up in relief. "Oh, thank God. Yes, it just stopped moving. I don't know what happened. I've been here for almost an hour." Her voice was soft, but carried a polished accent, the kind you hear from people who've traveled. David parked behind her car, grabbed his toolbox from the back seat, and approached. The wind from the lagoon swept through the bridge, carrying the faint smell of salt water. "Let's take a look," he said, lifting the hood. The engine was spotless, clearly well maintained, but he quickly spotted the issue, a loose battery terminal. He tightened it and checked the connections, his fingers working with the ease of someone who had done this 100 times. "You should be fine now," he said, lowering the hood. "It was just a small connection problem. Try starting it." She slid into the driver's seat, turned the key, and the Mercedes purred back to life. Her face broke into a dazzling smile. "You're a lifesaver. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't stopped." David shrugged, embarrassed by the praise. "It's nothing, just glad I could help." But she wasn't done. Stepping out of the car again, she looked at him with an intensity that made him shift his weight. "You must let me thank you properly. Please, follow me home. I insist." He hesitated. He wasn't in the habit of visiting strangers at night, especially not women who looked like they belonged on magazine covers. But her tone wasn't just polite, it was commanding, as if she was used to getting her way. "It's really no trouble," David said. "Please," she pressed, her hand briefly touching his arm. "You've been kind to me. At least let me give you a proper meal. My house isn't far from here." Her perfume drifted to him, warm and sweet, and before he could think twice, he found himself nodding. "All right, just for a little while." She smiled again, and it was the kind of smile that could make a man forget the world. "Perfect. Follow me." Back in his car, David trailed her Mercedes as it glided through the Lagos night. Something about the whole situation felt strange, but he told himself it was just the unexpectedness of it all. Helping strangers was second nature to him. It was how he was raised. David followed the sleek black Mercedes through the bustling Lagos streets, each turn taking them deeper into neighborhoods far beyond his usual routes. The traffic eased as they entered the upscale part of Ikoyi, where the roads were wide, the streetlights brighter, and the houses sat behind tall gates and manicured hedges. He had never been here before, and the sight of sprawling mansions with security posts at every entrance made him tighten his grip on the steering wheel. The Mercedes slowed and turned into a driveway guarded by uniformed men. One of them glanced at David's old Corolla with raised eyebrows before opening the gate. The compound inside was breathtaking, a vast lawn dotted with palm trees and a two-story house glowing under warm exterior lights. Clara stepped out of her car, her dress flowing gracefully as she approached him. "Welcome," she said, her voice smooth like honey. "Please, come in. You must be tired." David hesitated at the foot of the marble steps, his dusty work boots feeling out of place against the pristine floor. Inside, the house was even more stunning. High ceilings with crystal chandeliers, walls adorned with abstract paintings, and a faint scent of roses hanging in the air. "You have a beautiful home," he said, his voice low. "Thank you," Clara replied, leading him into a spacious living room with plush white sofas and gold accents. "Please, make yourself comfortable." He sat stiffly on the edge of a sofa, unsure whether to relax or keep his guard up. Clara disappeared into another room and returned with 2 glasses of wine, the deep red liquid catching the light. "I don't really drink," David said politely, but she smiled and handed him the glass anyway. "Just a little," she urged. "It's a special vintage. Consider it part of my gratitude." Not wanting to seem rude, he took a sip. The wine was rich and smooth, leaving a warmth in his chest. They began to talk about his work as a mechanic, his dreams of starting his own garage someday, and her vague mentions of business and travel. Clara's questions were oddly personal at times, like she wanted to know more than just his name and job. "How old are you, David?" she asked, tilting her head. 27, he said, then chuckled nervously. "Why?" "No reason," she replied with a small smile, but her eyes held a strange gleam. Another sip, and then another. David felt the edges of his thoughts soften, his body relaxing more than he intended. The warmth from the wine spread faster now, heavier, and his eyelids seemed to weigh twice as much. "You look tired," Clara murmured, moving closer. She sat beside him, her perfume filling his senses. "Maybe, just a little," he admitted, though he knew this wasn't normal fatigue. Something was wrong. Clara's hand touched his arm, then his chest, her fingers lingering in a way that made his pulse race. His mind screamed for him to stand, to say he should be going, but his limbs felt heavy, almost disconnected from his will. Clara's wineglass slipped to the back of her neck, her eyes locking onto him with a look that made his skin prickle. The world went dim, his body sinking into the sofa as the wineglass slipped from his fingers. A pale beam of sunlight filtered through tall windows, pulling David back from the depths of uneasy dreams. His head throbbed as if a hammer had been pounding against it all night. Slowly, he opened his eyes and realized he was lying on the same white sofa in Clara's living room. For a moment, confusion clouded him. He remembered sipping the wine, talking to Clara, and then nothing. He sat up slowly, his body aching in ways he couldn't explain. That's when he noticed them. Faint reddish markings, almost like symbols, on his chest and arms. They looked as though they'd been drawn or burned into his skin, and the sight made his stomach twist. The house was silent, unnervingly so. No sound of cooking, no movement upstairs. Clara appeared from a hallway, dressed now in a long silk robe, her hair perfectly arranged as if she'd just stepped out of a magazine photo shoot. "You're awake," she said with a calm smile, as if they had simply shared a quiet evening together. "What happened?" David's voice was hoarse. Why do I feel like this?" She tilted her head slightly. "You had too much to drink. You should rest a little more." But David wasn't buying it. He tried to stand, but his legs trembled. "Clara, what's going on? And these," he gestured at the markings, "what are they?" Her smile didn't waver. She stepped closer, her perfume wrapping around him again, but now it felt suffocating. "You're asking too many questions," she said softly, as though scolding a child. "You did me a favor last night, and in return, I did what I had to do." The words sent a chill down his spine. Did what you had to do? He repeated. What does that mean? Before she could answer, the sharp trill of a phone broke the silence. Clara turned and picked it up from a glass table. David was about to sit back down when he heard her voice change, lower, sharper, almost businesslike. Yes, it's done, she said into the phone. He was strong, but it's all there now. The others will be pleased. Yes, I'll see you tonight. David froze. Her tone, her words, they were too deliberate, too cold. When she hung up, she didn't notice that he was staring at her, his mind piecing together fragments of a terrifying picture. What others? He asked quietly. Clara's gaze snapped to him, and for a moment he saw something flicker in her eyes. Not guilt, but something darker, more primal. You wouldn't understand, she said finally. There are circles in this city you don't know about. Women of power. Women who take what they need to keep it. Her words sank in like ice. And what do you need, Clara? He asked, though part of him didn't want the answer. She leaned down, her lips close to his ear. Strength, influence, life. We take it from those like you, young, full of energy. One night is enough to renew what we have for years. David's chest tightened. You mean last night? She straightened, her robe swaying. You gave me what I needed. Don't think of it as theft. Think of it as a transaction. You helped me, I helped you. But David didn't feel helped. He felt drained, violated, and trapped. The markings on his skin burned faintly, as though mocking him. Clara walked toward the staircase without another glance. The door is open. You can leave now. But take my advice. Forget this night ever happened. Her footsteps faded upstairs, leaving her alone in the vast, too perfect living room. David stood shakily, every muscle protesting. The morning air outside was crisp, but it didn't clear the fog in his mind. He stepped out into the driveway, the security guard barely glancing at him as he walked to his car. As he drove away, the city looked different, brighter, but far more dangerous. He knew he would never forget Clara, or the truth he had stumbled into. Somewhere in Lagos, behind beautiful faces and designer clothes, there were predators who fed on more than just flesh. And David, the kind-hearted mechanic who only wanted to help, had unwittingly stepped into their world.